Hello everyone, Vulcan here, and my god, this episode ends with the craziest cliffhanger of 2016. Guys, let me tell you one thing, 2016 has been complete crap. Just to give you an idea, let's go through a list. David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Prince, Ali, Gene Wilder, Carrie Fisher, Pura Nikos. Crow better not fucking be on this list of 2016 deaths because God only knows what bloody rat this world will experience by these hands of mine. We've gotten enough crap from this year and we're literally hours from 2017 and it simply doesn't stop making us feel pain. But I'm jumping way ahead here, so let's start this review from the beginning. So the episode covered Team Ranger as expected, and also gave us some more showings of Blake and what's happening at Menagerie right now. Since Blake's story is less important to the overall plot, I'm going to be reviewing her side of the episode first. So we see Blake out on the balcony alone with her thoughts as her mother approaches with her tea set, suggesting to Blake that she be the one to go and offer the drink to Gira. We can see right off the bat that Blake is somewhat nervous to go in, although that also begs the question of why she's standing literally outside his studio, but whatever. Though Kali obviously had the intention of having Blake and her father talk to each other after being apart for so long, Kali was also quite blatant about wanting to talk with Sun because A, she likes him, and B, she knew that it would be easier to find out what Blake has been up to as part of Team RWBY from Sun as opposed to Blake herself, because she says it herself, she's never been one to talk. Blake decides to steel herself and enters her father's studio. Of course, Gira is very happy to see her and immediately leaves behind all the paperwork to go and speak with her. Plus points go to Gira in this scene for doing so, because after what happened in the last episode, seeing someone be a good father was probably something that a lot of us have been wanting, myself included. As they talk to each other, Blake shows the reason she was nervous was because she was afraid of how her family sees her now, how her family is judging her. This scene reveals the circumstances, or at least partially reveals them, by which Blake decided to leave Menagerie to go and fight with the White Fang, as they were becoming more extremist in their activities. We already knew since Volume 1 that Blake was always someone who cared strongly for the cause, and it's reasonable that in her naive mind, before joining the academy, going to fight with the White Fang was the right thing to do. When her parents told her not to go, likely saying that it was too dangerous, she wouldn't listen to them and even called them cowards for leaving the White Fang and abandoning the fight. Now that she came back home, she was afraid of how her parents would judge her considering all the things she's done. To which I have to wonder, just what has Blake done that she feels so ashamed of herself? Going by the Black trailer, it's evident that Blake didn't want to bring harm to innocent people, so I really doubt that Blake killed innocents herself. Perhaps she feels guilty for being associated with the organization that partook in such acts, and on top of that, given how she's acting, I wouldn't put it past her that she's killed other humans and maybe even other faunas who didn't associate themselves with the White Fang, and that's what she's feeling guilty about. However, this is the part where Gira proves himself to be the great dad that he is, saying that he'll always love Blake no matter what she's done and that he's proud of the fact that she didn't go down the wrong path, and even more so that although she had strayed for a time, she managed to leave that path and come back to the good side. Blake knows that she hadn't done so alone. Gira acknowledges this and even appears to approve of this, which also suggests that perhaps Blake was always a bit of a loner outside of her family. The million-dollar question then surfaces from Gira's mouth. Why did Blake leave her friends when they helped her face the same people that represented her dark past? I was really excited to hear her answer, although I can guess at what it is, before Sun bursts into the room. On that note, I just love how Gira just does not like Sun. The relationship between those two is just so funny. I just love them so much. It turns out the reason Sun rushed in on Blake and her father was because of an important piece of info that Kali had given him, albeit unintentionally. The White Fang and Menagerie don't wear masks. I suspected this to be the case due to what I mentioned before about there being at least two factions within the White Fang, with Adam's faction being the extremist one and therefore the one known for its carnival shenanigans, i.e. the mask wearing. The fact that those in Menagerie don't wear masks would mean that they aren't of the extremist faction. There's various other things I would like to add to this, but I'll cover this in another video. The long and short of it is that the White Fang and Menagerie aren't within the extremist faction. At first, Blake doesn't want to hear about it, seeing as she came home to rest and collect her thoughts on where she would like to go next, what she would like to do following what happened at Beacon. That is until the Foxy Ninja, and I'll call her Foxy despite the horns because why the hell not, let out a yelp after being hit by Sun's scroll. That was a nice coincidence, by the way. It's funny because one moment Blake says she doesn't want to fight and the next moment she goes chasing after Foxy Ninja. Kali's expression is also pretty curious when Sun rushes after Blake. You'd think the first thing she'd do is tell Gira something's happening, but who knows. Next time we see Blake, we'll find out that's exactly what happened. Calling Kali out on being another spy would be too much of a stretch since there's nothing to support any such theory. And now on to the main part of the episode. So I probably mentioned this in my review of the last episode, but I suspected that if Crow were to tell the tale about the 4 seasons, we'd simply get some comments out of him or Team Ranger about maintenance so that we know that's the story he told. Lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, albeit contrary to what I really expected, which was a story about what Salem might be. At the start of the episode, we see Crow asking if anyone has any questions, and it's immediately evident that he's told the story the 4 mains. At first I thought I made the wrong call, but it turns out I wasn't completely wrong after all. But I'll get to that in a bit. The first thing I want to point out is RWBY's choice of words. These maidens don't need dust to use magic. So remember back to Volume 3, when Pyrrha was told about this tale and how the maidens could use special powers. Pyrrha asked if it was like dust, and Ozpin corrected her saying that it was actually like magic. Fans like myself therefore speculated that although dust and magic are similar, what with both being a source of power to alter the elements like fire, ice, wind, and lightning, and with one coming from within and the other coming from an external source, they were distinct from each other and therefore separate. Instead, now we appear to be getting confirmation that dust is a way for regular people to use magic. In my theory on Salem, I mentioned how magic is the origin of both the Grimm and the Maidens. The fact that dust could also originate from magic is therefore not unfounded given the similarities between them. Crow's next tale confirms this much, and he starts off by saying that not many people are religious in Remnant anymore. That got me excited because I've been wanting to know about what kind of religions exist in Remnant after Captain Findus's remark in episode 3, by the gods. Of course, it's not surprising by itself that there are religions in Remnant, but I was curious to know what kind of religions there were. We find out that although there are many, at least 2 are true. I'm not sure why he said 2 considering this next tale he talks about accounts for 1 religion, and you can probably extrapolate a lot of similarities between this one and Christianity, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. I do, however, want to point out how this tale is very similar to my theory on the witches and wizards, which I talked about in my previous video. This religion talks about 2 brothers, one who represented light and the other representing darkness. The elder brother, the one of light, was responsible for creating life, while the younger brother, the one of darkness, created forces of destruction. The younger brother, in seeing the creations of his elder brother, would become disgusted and destroy them. As the cycle went on, he created the Grimm, creatures that shared in his desire for mindless destruction. In seeing this, the older brother decided to speak with his younger brother, and together they created their ultimate masterpiece, humanity, a being that encompassed both the light and dark sides by having the power to both create and destroy life, the power of knowledge, and the power to choose between either the light or the darkness. These 4 things, creation, destruction, knowledge, and choice, were given physical form. These are the 4 relics that were mentioned multiple times in this volume. At any rate, the fact that there existed a precursor race, if you will, kind of confirms some of my theory, as it's similar to how witches and wizards existed before humanity, and one such wizard was responsible for creating the Grimm due to disagreements with the old wizard. To add to that, I find it possible that the old wizard, and therefore Ozpin, following my theory, was originally the elder brother of light. Salem may similarly be the reincarnation of, or continuation of, the younger brother of darkness, or perhaps someone else entirely. Sadly, Crow's story didn't confirm this, and he even said that he doesn't know what Salem is exactly. What I was also hoping for, which wasn't answered in this episode, was how all this relates to RWBY and the Silver-Eyed Warriors. Crow only mentioned that her use of her powers upset people who would rather not want such powers to surface, without giving any real reason why. And since the episode touched on the 4 relics, I would have liked to know exactly what they do. Creation and destruction are perhaps self-explanatory, and it can probably be guessed that knowledge is basically a container of all knowledge in the world. Kinda like the gates seen in Full Metal Alchemist, which Ed and Al go through whenever they perform a forbidden transmutation. That leaves choice. Considering the name, it's probably an instrument that can decide what choice a person or a group of people make. Sound familiar? This episode also reveals the rather unsurprising fact that the schools exist as a way of both hiding and protecting the relics from falling into the wrong hands. We also get some very vague information on Crow's semblance. Rather than it being something he can use at will, it's something that's always there. Essentially, Crow is a walking bad luck charm, and it was for that reason that he didn't travel next to Team Ranger and opted to instead follow them from a distance. To me, this feels a bit of a cop-out explanation more than anything, to be honest, but it does point out something interesting. Killax came up with a good theory on Raven very recently on the possibility that she's a skinwalker. For those of you who don't know, skinwalkers are part of Native American lore wherein a man or woman, I guess, could change into the form of an animal given that they're carrying part of said animal, be it a tooth, a bone, fur, etc. Her theory further states that in the earliest days of humanity, there was a group of such skinwalkers who, over time, permanently adopted animal features because they were transforming into their animal too often, and that eventually gave rise to the faunas as we know them. Because of this, they let go of their skinwalker methods out of concern that they might eventually become full-fledged animals. I figured that if this theory were to hold any water, then Raven's and Crow's abilities to shapeshift is separate from their semblance, whatever it may be. If what Crow is saying is true at surface value, then it'll be interesting to see how this theory will be confirmed. The only issue I have with this theory is that Crow's implication that the faunas have been around for longer than humans, whereas this theory suggests that humans have been around before the faunas were. And the episode ends with what I hope won't be the most famous last words of 2016, but that purple blood does not look like good news to anyone. Like I said, if Crow kicks the bucket now, this world will experience a wrath that will even make Lord Beerus shit his pants. So, that concludes my review of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have, and hopefully you enjoyed this video as well, so like it if you did. As always, share your thoughts down in the comment section below, subscribe to my channel for more, and of course, I wish you all a very happy new year, and I hope to see you around soon.